Michael Jordan, you are joining me on Bitcoiners United. I'm super excited to have you. You do great work with the Bitcoin Way. I was quite aware of the Bitcoin Way for a while before I met you for the first time in Vegas last spring. And then you gave a great speech in Prague, and you've just been out there all over. You are the Chief Growth Officer at Bitcoin Way. You are the other Michael Jordan, but you are more bullish than the Chicago Bulls. But how's the day going for you today?
Going good, man. Thanks for having me on. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Yeah, you too. Now, when I say bullish, it really is not the right term for the type of conviction that we have or that Bitcoiners really should have. And you spoke to this in your Prague speech. Is that you get a lot of X feed out there that is number go up, strategic Bitcoin reserve, nation state or corporate adoption, all the derivatives and the treasury stuff. And you mentioned, we're not saying like that is bad per se, but it's just off in a direction that is quite fiat. What the Bitcoin Way represents and the message that you share is well beyond the number go up bullishness, is really the movement, the importance of this, the most peaceful revolution we could have. Do you want to speak to kind of what made your mind go in that direction as you were learning about Bitcoin for the first time?
Yeah, and my mindset has shifted a lot since finding Bitcoin, because I, originally started studying, crypto more broadly because I was interested in it as, perhaps an investment or some other asset class that I should be considering and I should know something about. And so even early on as a Bitcoiner, as a Bitcoin maxi, I was still probably, checking the price a lot and thinking a lot about that. Now, I will say my long-term thesis on Bitcoin is that the purchasing power will continue to appreciate immensely over time. And so
certainly
it's not that I'm bullish on price action, and maybe it's because I just assume that to be the likely outcome, that it's easier for me to ignore it. But what I'm much more interested in is, self-sovereignty go up, freedom go up. And I think you accomplish that much more easily than you accomplish upward price action in dollar terms. You accomplish it by, taking control of more sats at the end of each day than you started, and owning it in self-custody. And the thing for me, it's honestly my approach to orange pilling has actually shifted a little bit, because I think the number go up thing, you got to explain, hey, it's going to go up because it's a scarce asset. There are a lot of people who need that. But if I'm talking to anyone who's reasonably open-minded to the notion of self-sovereignty, they're skeptical of government, they're skeptical of, a lot of the clown world stuff that we talk about a lot in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Framing it as, I don't even care what the number on the ticker does. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, to me, it is more valuable that I can control my own wealth. I can permissionlessly and without fear of censorship transact with anyone around the world digitally through a decentralized network, and not have to rely on an institution that I hate and completely mistrust, like a
absolutely
example. And that's a really hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. Like they're like, okay, that sounds great, but Venmo works for me. I've never been censored. And so it's like a journey you have to go on, I think. But for me, that's what I get excited is if I can move more sats into self-custody at the end of each day, at the end of each week, at the end of each month, each year, that's success. And Bitcoin's dollar denominated, exchange rate. I don't really like talking about price action. I don't think there's a price of Bitcoin. I think it's an exchange rate.
Yeah.
If that continues to appreciate in value, awesome. And I think it will. And I probably wouldn't, be as excited about the future of Bitcoin if I didn't, because I think we do need that dollar denominated exchange rate to increase over time for broader adoption, for that sort of thing. But my personal life, I'm good. I'm in self-custody, baby.
Yeah. And if your motivation into Bitcoin, I mean, maybe you started there, but if it remains number go up, or, when moon and I want to make mine, and you're in that fiat brain, why are you, you got to step back and say, if the price goes down, why are you in this? I went through some of that, years ago, but, I was, when I first learned about Bitcoin, as many of us did, it was kind of number go up. And, I'm into the technology and the capability of all that. Like I was still imagining the potential there. but it was easy when it was like, ooh, number go up, number go up. Oh, okay. And when it did start to go, and I wrote it up and I wrote it down, and we're all talking fiat here. And as it was going down, I had to remind myself here and there, okay, why am I doing this again? Oh, yes, I remember why. And it was an education for me, and a strengthening of conviction, if you will. If you can write it up, you see people kind of flagellating over fiat price. And it's like, is this your first time? Is this your first cycle? Like, stick around, stick to it.
For
You're
sure.
gonna be fine. You made some key points during your talk. So, like I said, ignore the talking heads, shed the high time preference, take self custody, run a node, spend and replace, opt out of the fiat nonsense. And then ultimately, what that all leads to is your personal agency is be the change that you can see in the world. And you can do that small stuff like you at the farmer's market, or, simple stuff you can do with Bitcoin as you spend and replace. But you are participating in a whole movement. What was your Bitcoin story when you first heard of Bitcoin and started on that?
So I don't know when I first heard about it. I think I'm interested in a lot of things. I'm curious. I think I might have actually bought Bitcoin back in like 2018, like just bought some on Coinbase and, some Ethereum, whatever else, a bunch of shit coins probably. I think I had more or less sold all of that and thought I had made a profit, and I'd won in some form or fashion. It wasn't until 2022 that I actually said, I'm going to dedicate time to learning about this stuff. And I know within like 6 months, I was a toxic Bitcoin maxi. I was still probably very number go up minded. I mean, as recently as last, what would it have been in Nashville when Trump was speaking, I was cheering that on, and we don't have to we can get into SBRs or not, but I've completely, my mindset has completely shifted even in 12 months in terms of how I think about those things. And so I would say the macro case for Bitcoin made a lot of sense to me very quickly, and it kind of helped that I was forged in the bear market of 22, because it was so evident that the Bitcoin maxis were right about Celsius, they were right about BlockFi, they were right about FTX, and they'd been calling this stuff out. And so while I was thinking I started the year, I'm going to study crypto and blockchain and NFTs and cryptocurrencies, it became very quickly clear that there was really one bit of signal in all of the noise. And I had fortunately a friend of a friend sort of hooked me up into the Lynn Alden, told me I needed to get on Twitter, start following some people, recommended Preston Pish's podcast. And so that his first 50, 60 episodes really took me from I know nothing about what this is, how it works, to, okay, I'm comfortable. By June of that year, 6 months in, I was trying to orange pill a guy at my wife's cousin's wedding. And so I know it was pretty early in my journey. I got onto Bitcoin, but again, I joke with my wife, we've been married 12 years now. I was like, could you have imagined who you married 12 years ago would be the guy saying the things I'm saying today? But even in the last 12 months, some of the other rabbit holes, tangential, I guess, to the, fix the money, fix the world, the sort of mantra.
Yeah.
I sound like a completely different person. So I'll be very curious to see, another year from now, what I'm going to be saying.
I can totally relate to that. And so, you have a good woman when she's, tolerated and survived the marriage through the first stages of personal hyper Bitcoinization, if you will. And you can relate, but I'll get to, and I've learned to manage how I need to be talking about it incessantly. But you get to thinking about it, you get to talking about it. Your wife's good for a lot, but after a while, it's like she may not be against Bitcoin, and hopefully your partner is not anti-Bitcoin, but there's a little bit of tolerance when you're all into it and you're thinking it and talking it, and there's this and that, and you want to go down a rabbit trail, and they're supportive and interested. And after a while, it's like, okay, honey, you kind of have to be mindful of your relationship But you just get so excited when you're first orange pilled, and then you go through that phase where I want to tell everyone about this. I want people to know, and then they're thinking fiat price, and oh, how price is up. Oh, I'm curious now. Price is down. Oh, how's your Bitcoin? And then you kind of get over that as well. But that's where the Bitcoin way, it remains super based. I don't know of another. I mean, it's a hugely growing presence in the Bitcoin world in terms of providing consultancy and education and the spirit of all of this. If you'll indulge me for a moment, the first face of the Bitcoin way that I did see was Tony, and he's prolific. He puts out the videos. He is out there, and he is solidly based, as you are, and I'm so glad to have both of you in my little circle. But here's a quote from Tony. He said, "We have a rare chance to choose truth over lives, to step into the storm with our eyes open, to hold money they cannot steal, to speak freely, to build a new foundation on something real. This isn't about Bitcoin alone. It's about dignity. It's about refusing to live on your knees. It's about becoming ungovernable in the ways that matter the most. Our old world is breaking. Good. Let it die. We're not here to just save it. We're here to build what comes next. This isn't the end of everything. It's just the end of their game and the beginning of ours." Wow. That's what I love about the Bitcoin way, is that you provide a practical solution for people at any level of their Bitcoin path to call up, get a free consultation, see what they need, see where they're going. But the ethics are the most based and solid that I know out there in the Bitcoin world, just about. What do you see when people are coming to the Bitcoin way? What are the kinds of situations they're in, or maybe problems they may have, questions they have? What is that like?
Yeah, it's a range. So we've got, obviously, I think your real base Bitcoiners who recognize sort of the attributes of Bitcoin that make it so interesting, that aren't number go up. Those sorts of folks gravitate toward us, of course, because they want to take self-custody. They want control of their wealth. They don't want to ask anyone for permission to use their money. They don't want reliance on an app. They don't want a third-party customer support, person knowing how much Bitcoin they have or when they move it. They don't want to KYC themselves. So we get that hardcore flock of Bitcoiners, migrating to us. Additionally, it's been interesting. So and this is something we could talk about, but we've had a ton of traffic lately from Australia. They have, I mean, if anyone's paying any attention, insane tax policies. You've got to verify your age now to access social media. I think if you're, you have to be 7 years older to access social media. And so you've got to provide age verification. Fortunately, the government's stupid and people are smart, and they're using VPNs and all sorts of other, tricks and tools to circumvent that, which I think is a very healthy civil disobedience. But we're having a lot of people come to us for that, because in addition to self-custody Bitcoin, which is, obviously sort of our bread and butter, we think that's, the fundamental building block of a self-sovereign life. We help with online privacy, so we can, help you lock down your online life, computer. We have privacy phone setups that we'll do for our clients, which is a huge draw in Australia, in places like the UK. Where they're clamping down on free speech, and social media is not what it used to be. And then we have a lot of people too who are coming from those sorts of jurisdictions. And by the way, not just Australia, not just the UK, not just Canada, but the US, all over the world, who will come to us for a plan B, where we can get them help them walk through the process of a plan B residency in Panama, which has turned out to be an awesome pick. Cool. It's a fraction of the cost of like a citizenship by investment program. And the mayor of Panama City is running a BitAx in his office. I mean, you can pay public services in Bitcoin. So like the trajectory there looks up and to the right in terms of lifestyle, freedom, autonomy, self-sovereignty. And it's a cool experience. We meet you boots in the ground in Panama. to guide you through the process over the course of a few days. And when you leave, you've got your temporary residency, and then you can, work your way toward a permanent residency just a couple of years later. Again, for
Awesome.
a fifth of the cost, a tenth of the cost, depending on what jurisdiction you would be looking to buy a passport in. So it's just the cool thing about being a based company is that you end up having based people come to you. And so the people we get to interact with, our clients, they're just incredible. And I've had probably 5 or 6 of them on our podcast at this point because they have interesting stories. And it's an honor to get to work with people like Tony every day. And it's an honor to get to, sit down with our clients and interview them and talk to them about what it was that got them into Bitcoin, what brought them to the Bitcoin way, and to we hear enough from like the big influencers, right? And I think that's great. No knock on them. We sponsor a lot of those podcasts. Awesome people. It's fun to hear from just like the average pleb who has their own story and something to say, but doesn't have a big YouTube channel in which to express everything that they've learned.
Yeah, as much as I learn about the great books out there, and now I've got the big print right here, and you're tomorrow, right? You've got Larry Lepard on your podcast.
We're doing a webinar with Larry.
A webinar.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this right now, go sign up for the webinar. Go check out I think if you just go to our X account and scroll through, we've got a couple of posts about it, but you can go sign up for that. He's just going to be sitting there for an hour answering your questions about macro, gold pumping, where he sees Bitcoin headed in 26, like whatever you want to ask Larry, anything, within sort of the confines of what he focuses on and studies. He's going to just be answering questions for people.
Awesome. So you can find the Bitcoin Way on X, at the Bitcoin Way _ if you search for them, you'll find them. So you can sign up for the webinar there and participate with Larry on some education there.
Yeah. And by the way, love Larry. I think he and I have sort of become friends over the last year. I've had him on the podcast a couple of times. We've done, this will be our second webinar with him, got to hang out with him in Prague for a little while, Vegas. So he's if you haven't had the Fritz, have you met Larry?
Yes. So when we were in Vegas,
okay,
we had our MicroSeed booth, and randomly Larry was right behind us, behind the curtain. Now, when you that's where I'd heard the book, but I'd never seen him or listened to him a ton. In my mind, he was kind of like older boomer tradfi kind of a guy, but understood the system really well and had figured out Bitcoin. And I didn't realize how knowledgeable and solid he was on the values. So I met him there. I had the book. He signed it. I tell you, huge flexibility of mind. He's tenacious in his standing up for what's right and what's honest. When people are out there like fudding or trolling or take a shot at him, he shuts it down hard. I love him for that. And yet in person, the most generous, kind, good listener type of a guy. Like, I was nobody, and here I am, just a fanboy with a book. Hey, you want to sign my book? He spent some time. The line was backing up for everybody, but for every person who came, it was about this moment. He took the time. He was kind. He'll be great on the webinar. As a person, I really respect him.
Yeah, he's as kind in real life as you can imagine he might be. And yeah, I think he's and is super based. Like, he's a CrossFitter. Like, he's out there doing the proof of work in his own personal life, aside from the work he puts into Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. But he's one of the few voices I think we have in Bitcoin that can credibly combat the gold bug narratives about why Bitcoin's going to fail, why gold's going to be the future, why that's the only thing that's going to preserve your purchasing power. Because he was a gold bug. He is a gold bug. Like, he still thinks there's a runway for gold to do well. Which, honestly, like, I'm all Bitcoin. I'm not buying a bunch of gold, but I completely understand his case for that. I think he's probably going to be right. It's not something as a younger person that I find to be, immensely valuable, because I think over a long enough time horizon, that will then turn to become wrong, and gold will no longer be, a useful means of preserving your purchasing power. But like, he's one of the guys going to bat for us against, the boomers who historically he was on the same team as. And he it's like these guys have been, all the gold bugs, they've been so right for so long about the problem that now their timing has never been right. They think it's, like Larry says, he's like, I thought '08, I thought that was the end. And, and so like they've been wrong about the timing, but directionally correct for so long. And so many of them don't have the humility to recognize that a faster horse has joined the race, and Larry's screaming it from the mountaintops, and, hopefully counteracting some of the Peter Schiff voices of the world who are turning people off to Bitcoin. So I think having the baby boomers like Larry is so important to us.
Yeah. And I mean, nothing against gold other than, like if you really go down that trail and you're thinking, well, I want to take self-custody, or I want to actually own my gold and not have it on paper or have to go through some broker. And then ultimately, when I want to spend it, what am I doing with this stuff? Like, do I need to sell whole coins or shave it off? Or, I mean, everything about it as a store of value, there's some fundamentals there. But yeah, Bitcoin just blows it out of the water in terms of the capability and what we need ultimately. And yeah, we all get that.
Well, there's a reason why Jack Dorsey didn't turn on gold payments for 4 million,
right,
around the world. I mean, there's a reason why Bitcoin, and I think that's what the gold bugs miss, is like they've been living in this store of value narrative for so long that they've forgotten other functions of money. And I don't know, the more I sit on this debate, the harder time I have understanding why they think something has to be physical when the dollars that they use to transact are digital. I mean, most of them are
intrinsic value. It's got to have intrinsic value.
Exactly. Which is so easily dispelled. I mean, it's anyone who's running with the intrinsic value narrative is just, it's at this point, they're just sticking their head in the sand. Like they don't want to have been wrong for so long about what the best solution would be. And it's unfortunate to me. It's inexcusable for someone like Peter Schiff, because I think first of all, I think he owns Bitcoin. Like not just
he does.
Not just what Bitcoiners have sent him. Like I think he understands it to the degree that he is actively accumulating Bitcoin himself.
I believe it.
And he's still has been a huge disservice to a more prosperous future.
That's the thing, is that he casts shade and FUD on the whole thing when I think he's quietly stacking. He just wouldn't ever say that because that's not his business. So whatever, he's got a business to run, but I think it's shady. So we've got our Larry Lepard's out there, the books you spoke to, how there are voices in this space that they have their message, they're educating and all that. And it's the gestalt of Bitcoin is so much more than say the Lynn Aldens and the Larry Lepards and the Seifedines. They wrote their books, and that's how I learned, and that's all good. But it's definitely about the plebs, the movement, the community, the people you meet through the Bitcoin way. That's definitely the essence of this, is the decentralized nature of it that helps make it secure. I think of Australia. What do they say? Necessity breeds invention. It's like Australia is facing a ton of, I don't know. I've got Sean Clark coming on the podcast down the road. And I want to ask him, like, is Australia fucked? Like, so much is going on in Australia. And so necessity being the mother of invention, it's like there are a lot of Australians, like you mentioned, that are figuring out Bitcoin rather quickly, because it's like, if it's easier to have it a little soft in America, say, like, oh, we're free, right? It's easy, right? But when you need it, suddenly it's like, oh, what's the open door now? Like, we're getting cornered here. Right. What's the solution? So Australia is figuring it out, maybe on a quickening scale.
Yeah, I was on Sean's podcast recently. I don't think it's come out yet, but I was sort of asking him. So he told me he lives in a pretty small town, kind of to the north. You know, it's there. He's separated physically and geographically from a lot of the chaos, the mayhem, the overt tyranny of the big cities there. But he's like, I think during COVID, you know, shops were open, not everyone was wearing masks.
Oh, that's cool.
But he's like, it was just as insane as you probably would imagine.
Australia went nuts during COVID.
Completely crazy. And you know, but it's sort of like the United States a little bit. You know, like where I am, it was a lot less bad. A little further out into the country, it was you know, no one was talking about it, no one cared. And then you go to the big cities, you go to anywhere in California, you know, New York, and it was like the apocalypse, like the world was ending. And, you know,
don't you know the world's over?
I mean, just crazy. So I think at large, Australia, and the problem is in Australia, even if you're in a town where, you know, COVID, you know, measures don't apply, you're never in a jurisdiction within Australia. And by the way, Australia is just the example we're using here. You're never in a jurisdiction where the tax rules don't apply, where your ability to, like, you know, we have clients who are trying to buy Bitcoin and like they're trying to make it harder, and your bank's, you know, shutting you out if you are trying to do a transfer to an exchange or something like that. So you're not immune to all of that just because you live more remotely in Australia, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, the federalists, so to speak, have kind of won everywhere. And we have, you know, bigger centralized powers who are more and more detached from the reality of everyday people. And Australia is no different. But even in the US, I mean, I understand why people feel comfortable. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this. It's easy to feel like I haven't been shut out of my bank account yet. I haven't been, you know, I haven't had a transaction censored. I haven't, you know, go on down the list of things that haven't happened to you yet. But to me, like the Canadian trucker protest, you know, what was that, 2021? Like that is very close to home, right? We're not so far from that. And I know that there are a lot more firearms in the US, and I know that there are, you know, in theory, we've got, you know, constitutional amendments that would protect against certain things, but those have been steamrolled for a couple of centuries now. And to me, it's like, man, if you're not waking up to what happened during COVID, if you're not waking up, Wisconsin and Michigan are trying to ban VPNs. If you're not waking up to some of these, you know, these things, and it's going to graduate from one state to the next. I don't know what to tell you, you know.
Statism creeps. And in America, it's like there's an acknowledgement of, and they've tried to frame it and cast it in various fringe frames of light. But it's like, okay, yeah, the cat's out of the bag. The guns are out there. We're not going to go door to door. They can't. They've lost. But they can just sort of slowly heat the water up a little more. And it's like you mentioned it in your talk in Prague. You mentioned how basically we naturally as humans, we seek kind of a path of comfort, a path of least resistance. You kind of want the, you know, that was easy button, and like, what's easy, you know, and life's busy, you're distracted, and it's kind of like, well, what's easy? And so when you're not overtly feeling it too consciously, it's much easier to just kind of get along, or, well, I don't want to make waves, or, well, that would be hard to stick my neck out, or, well, what's the alternative? Oh, that's extra work. Oh, this is good enough. And then you settle for a little less, and then you settle for a little less. And statism creeps, or you get distracted by left versus right, red versus blue. It's not that I don't have opinions about those kinds of things, but it's like that quote, there is no red, there is no blue, there is the state, and there is you. And COVID, when you look back in hindsight on COVID and what all happened there, it's like, I can't freaking believe what one, where I was in America, what I saw happen in America. Two, things I was seeing in like California, in Australia. And it was like, you have got to be kidding me. And the only thing I can hope is that more and more people saw that, came out of that, somehow we survived, and go, you know what? They can't pull that again. Never again. So they, you know, whether that was one plan off a shelf or they got others down the road, which I believe there's there's other plans on the shelf to heat the water up and try things out. Um, I'm just hoping that we just are getting smarter as a society or a community. And as soon as stuff comes up, it's like, yep, no, no. We see it fits a category. It's not like, well, but this is new and different. See, we've never seen this before. Oh, the calamity, letting no good emergency go to waste. What I'm hoping is that people are aware of sort of the broad category of the statism and say, nope, just out of the gate. We already know.
Yeah. I hope you're right. And I think I think we're making progress. I have a feeling we're in a something of an echo chamber that makes it seem as though we're making more progress than we really have, because I think most people are still like, there are a handful of accounts I still follow on X from my previous right-leaning political days. And they are like, it's funny because I used to see their posts and I'd be like, yeah, cheering it on. And now I see it. I'm like, this is the stupidest post. You like, I could like, let me dismantle your ridiculous logic in 2 seconds. And I'd leave it alone because I'm not going to gain anything doing that.
Sure.
But it concerns me that there are still those big, right wing, big left wing influencers who I think have a major pull, like there's like I can't remember, a Clown World account on X. It's like typically like, dismissing left-wing woke ideology and stuff, which I'm cool with. But a lot of times what their posts will be, they'll share something about, I don't know, I can't even think of an example right now, but they'll share something that I would have used to cheer on, used to agree with. And now I see it, and it's like all you're doing is you're fueling you're adding fuel to this fire of tribalism. Like what you think you're accomplishing is not what you're accomplishing. Well, I guess you're getting paid to post on X and to be inflammatory, toward your right wing base, but there's no impact on net to waking people up to anything important.
Right.
And like it's cheering on the government for my pet initiatives that I like. And my new view is I don't want the government. The only thing I want the government cheered on for, and we'll get to this, is I want them to pardon the samurai debt.
Yeah.
And other than that, just because there is no other option to free those men except for a Trump pardon at this point. And so, other than that, I'm not cheering the government on to do anything, like literally anything. I want them to step out of our lives as much as humanly possible. And unfortunately, even though some people seem to be waking up, the general narrative I tend to see outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber are, I'm going to cheer on the government for the thing that I like,
Right.
And, it's just it's a slippery slope, and it's a trap. It's truly a trap.
Yeah. It's like the left and the right legs kind of still steadily march together toward the same tyranny.
They're both stomping on you.
Right. And the boots are still stomping. And so you could say, well, okay, at one time, one party is pro freedom, and it is advocating for this and that and the other. Meanwhile, still doing some bad. But then they can basically, it's like capturing that those minds. And then you see it change.
They're only pro freedom when they're not in power. When the other side is trampling on your freedom, it's an easy narrative when they know they can't accomplish anything to say, hey, look, they're stealing your freedoms. And then as soon as they're in power, they want to take your freedom away. Like there are a bunch of right-wing senators who cheer on age verification for social media. And let's say we're going to, give them the benefit of the doubt. They're doing it because they really do care about kids, which I don't believe.
Yeah. Who doesn't care about kids?
But let's suppose for a minute that, like in one of my senators here in Missouri, Josh Hawley, he's a big proponent of like nanny state, nonsense on social media companies, age verification. And, his position is, I'm a Christian and I believe, that it's polluting our kids' minds. It's like, yeah, I agree with that. I'm a Christian and I believe that social media is polluting our kids' minds.
I get it.
But I think that the government they shouldn't even be talking about this. If I have children, if I want to avoid polluting my kids' minds, I'm a big boy. I can make that decision myself. And if I don't, then my kids are going to suffer for it. And if you don't, as a parent, whoever's listening, your kids are going to suffer it. And my kids are going to beat your kids' ass someday in everything.
Yeah.
They're going to have critical thinking skills that your kids don't have. They're going to have an attention span that your kids don't have. They're going to have invested their time learning real world practical things that they can use in their life that your kids didn't because they were sitting there watching Netflix, scrolling TikTok, whatever it is that they're doing. Mm-hmm. The state needs no involvement in that. It's not the state's job. To the extent that the state must exist, the state's job is to protect our natural rights. And if they are doing anything that isn't protecting our natural rights, they should get the hell out of it.
Yeah, it makes me think of the Constitution where it goes down. It's not like the government was giving the people rights. It's more like restrictions on government, like the government shall not. And, if we missed anything for the states, the 9th Amendment leaves it to the states. Oh, and if we missed anything else, the 10th Amendment keeps it with the people. Like basically it's like, in case you had any doubts here, the people are to be free. But for so long now, it feels like we've been on a kind of like a cultural welfare program where our brains are just waiting and beholden to a state to like tell us how to do it. And, when do we jump? Okay. And how high? Okay. We're still good. Okay. And it feels like a co-option of our entire culture. One quote that I got from you, nothing, something just random anecdotally that you wrote to me, but it was said, you said, "I was wrong about everything before I found Bitcoin." Speaking to how we've all changed, the Bitcoiner we were a year ago, or the person we were 2-3 years ago. I'm going to just make a presumption. I would say it's not that you were wrong about everything before you found Bitcoin, because you started, I would presume, with a lot of good foundation. So you had your faith, you had your family, you had your values. All of that was fertile ground for which Bitcoin could take root. And that's getting to the root of some of the concerns I have about, maybe people in the world at large, is that deeper level of cultural, societal, community stuff where it's like the values, the faith, the family. I'm not saying, you need to be a certain way, but a lot of times we're like, well, I need the school to raise my kids, or, well, I need, and the fiat system has driven all this, like you got to have both parents with jobs or whatever. But it gets deeper to like the core values of who we are and why we would tolerate a government now taking care of everything, I think.
Yeah. So the way I would try to frame this is my personal values have remained largely unchanged since finding Bitcoin. My faith is stronger. It's unshaken. And part of the reason for that is because Bitcoin makes you curious to go second guess yourself and ask questions. And so last year I did like a whole rabbit hole on my faith and went and revisited the evidence for it. And I came back, stronger. Family has always been important to me. I was raised in an amazing family. I like to think that I'm raising amazing kids, and I have an amazing marriage. I've been married for 12 years. Couldn't be happier. So like a lot of the fundamental values that I hold have not changed since Bitcoin. What's changed is the way I believe those values manifest in the world. To what extent is, like, for example, like you were talking about, is it government's job to try to impose strong family values or to impose restrictions on certain things that they deem harmful? It's like, if you need any evidence that the government hates you, it's that, you can drive by a liquor store and a gentleman's club and all these on the way to go buy your illegal raw milk.
Right.
Like there's pretty good evidence that the government doesn't really care about your safety. And so when they come out and say these other things, and so for the longest time, I would cheer on like pro-family legislation, I guess you could say, when really the pro-family legislation we need is the dismantling of government in the form of the welfare state. Like the
Right.
most egregious violation of family rights has been subsidizing, single parent homes, has been subsidizing unproductive workers or non-productive workers. It's been subsidizing anything and everything that completely dismantles the infrastructure required for the values of family that I hold dear.
Mhm.
And so for the longest time, it was me cheering on what I thought to be, a president or a member of Congress who shared my values. When first of all, I no longer believe that they necessarily share my values. I would have to give them the benefit of the doubt and drop my cynicism, which I have a hard time doing with politicians anymore. But even if they did, is it government's job? And is that a path we want to go down, or is it incentivizing parents to take ownership of their lives, to raise their children the way that they see fit? And I've just come to realize it has nothing to do with cheering on the right politician at the right time. It has everything to do with just ignoring them, opting out,
Mhm.
and homeschooling your kids, and canceling your subscriptions if that's what you need to do, or like making those decisions on your own. And at the end of the day, I think that I think the welfare state and the fiat money printer are upstream of basically 100% of the major issues that we have today.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and our friend Daniel, he wrote a book on this, but it's like the great realignment where what Bitcoin fixes and it changes the rules of the game is going to force the system to adjust or perhaps eventually bend the knee. And hopefully what I think the way people say Bitcoin fixes this is that Bitcoin can force a change in the direction of the wind, and then eventually fiat will catch on as well as it is. And so, governments often use fear tactics or, security. And in your talk in Prague, and you've spoken of it before, but how many of us desire safety instead of freedom. You cited Benjamin Franklin, the quote, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. I mean, the title of this, my podcast main channel is Bitcoin Liberty Live. It started as Satoshi's militia, as kind of the spirit of like Satoshi's army, but like the plebs in every town, every village, Satoshi's militia, fiercely independent and all that. I modified the brand a bit just to be a little less perceptibly inaccessible, but just to open it up to, hey, this is about Bitcoin if you weren't aware, and liberty. It brings to mind another something penned by Benjamin Franklin as well. He shared it with Thomas Jefferson. They actually made it part of the original version of the Great Seal of the United States. It says, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. This is on the original Great Seal. They went with something else ultimately, with the eagle and the shield and the arrows. But it kind of captures the spirit of why we Bitcoin. And I just think it's important that we talked about the number go up bros, or the reasons why nation states could or should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We shall never forget the reasons why, and those reasons are going to change this system through and through eventually, if there's any hope for any of this. So that's my little soapbox there. Had you ever seen that Great Seal before or heard of that?
I've heard the quote. I hadn't seen the seal before. That's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this is not to get like too theological, but this is something that I wrestle with because, I look at like Romans 13 and Paul talking about, all authority is God ordained. And I have in my mind am constantly looking for what is the context that justifies of that writing that then justifies my resistance to the state. Because on its surface, it feels, like I'm contradicting Paul, the Apostle Paul, by by seeking to, to do some of the things I do. Now, to be fair, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm allowed to homeschool my kids. I'm allowed to buy Bitcoin. But my aspirations more broadly are, civil disobedience. And there are certainly, elements of that in my life today that didn't exist before. And I don't feel any sense of guilt in doing so, because my sense is that there is a reason why God instilled in men this desire for freedom, for self-determinism, for autonomy. And that's the thing I can't shake. And so in the absence of a very clear explanation as to what that might mean for my life, the only thing that I can imagine is, to the best of my ability, I need to fight for freedom. I need to fight tyranny. And I think I'd be comfortable meeting my maker saying, here's what I did. So I don't know if you ever have any of this sort of, back and forth in your own mind.
Yeah. I mean, when you think of like first principles type thinking, or getting down to the root questions, the deepest questions, that it's one thing to like feel the spirit of Bitcoin or be in on Bitcoin and have that start to change you. But if you dig deeper and dig deeper to the depths that you want to go, it gets down to that core purpose and spirit of who we are as you and I as men on the planet, our own origin story, our fundamental faiths, and like questioning is the curiosity and questioning is so important. Like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And the big why is the real question. Is we can just kind of say, well, it's just kind of what seems to work, or well, because it feels good and all that. But man, if you want to get deep with it, that's where you get into what is your belief structure, your belief system, your faith, because it's well beyond just humans themselves. We can't just decipher it logically. It's so deep and huge that all we can do is kind of reconcile it, make sense of it, dig deeper and learn more about ourselves. And it's a lifelong journey. So the work you did is ultimately very important. You can't say, okay, yeah, I figured it out. That's my story. Here's my book.
Right.
You're always kind of digging and always thinking.
Yeah.
No,
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's maybe my frustration with many Bitcoiners today is, and I can see, like, you go to a Bitcoin conference and I can see the ones who are on the same path as me. And I can see the ones that are want to just sit there and talk about price. Why isn't Bitcoin pumping right now? Why is it dumping? Hey, Bitcoin's up. Like you can almost see it in the way they carry themselves. And if not, within 2 minutes of talking to them, kind of where their head's at. And there's nothing wrong with being excited about price action. Like I get paid in Bitcoin, so I get excited when it dips because I earn more sats. But I understand people who are, they're they want to retire, they want to, whatever they want to do.
Sure.
But those people are if you think about Satoshi's militia, those are the least helpful people in a militia, are the people who are just excited about number go up, because what they're not doing is they're not opting out in every other aspect of their life and looking for ways to better themselves, to raise the next generation, to exceed anything that we could accomplish in our generation.
Yeah.
And we need more people who I think are just laser focused on how do I arrange my life in such a way that I optimize for my own self-sovereignty, my own freedom, and how do I impart those values on my kids? Because, and I know not everyone listening is necessarily a parent, but maybe someday you will be, or maybe someday you're going to have, you're going to have a microphone to, to share your voice and your story with kids in some capacity, or nieces or nephews or whoever. And we need people who aren't sitting around the Thanksgiving table talking about how their investment in Bitcoin paid off and look how dumb the rest of you are. We need people who are sitting there with a quiet confidence and a peace of mind because they have restructured their lives for the better. And part of that is there's a financial piece to that puzzle. Absolutely. And part of it's just, what do you do with the rest of your life? Because money I mean, you can't take it with you. So what is it that you're leaving behind besides, sats to the next generation? Hopefully it's everything that you've spent a lot of time learning, but you only get to do that if you didn't stop with number go up.
Yeah. And instead of being like, oh, well, yeah, you got lucky, or, well, yeah, number went up, should have been earlier. They're the first ones that would bail. Like if you've got your Satoshi's militia or the Satoshi's army, if your troops are a bunch of number go up bros, time they might have joined for the food, the adventure, see the world, number go up, but times get hard, they're out. And so, yeah, and then also like digging deeper. What is the legacy you're passing on? Why, again, getting back to your why are you in this? So when you have those kinds of conversations, if it's stuck on the numbers or the fiat thinking about it, I just kind of know that I'm tolerant to people's journey on the Bitcoin path, but I just hope that they keep walking the path and get further with it. It brings me to I'm thinking of Keone Rodriguez, you had on your podcast very recently, one of your more recent ones with him, the samurai case. It's interesting to me because when Daniel and I first sat down in a local restaurant and just clicked record on my phone and just said, hey, let's make a podcast, because we'd been having conversations and we're like, let's just record this and share it because it feels cool to us. And we started that mid-April of 2024. And the very first episode 1 that we made together, I woke up that morning, I read the news, we went and sat down together, and I was I was feeling in kind of a ditch, because as excited and everything as I was about Bitcoin, the news that weekend had been that the feds had busted down the doors of the Samurai developers, and I was just kind of learning about it. I'd heard of the wallet. I hadn't been using it or explored it a ton, but the news that they'd been busted had just happened. And so we start the podcast out, and the audio sucks and everything about it. But it was like, wow, did you hear what happened to Samurai? Now here we are, like a year and a half later, they've gotten convicted. To hear Rodriguez talk about it and to learn about the case, it's like, I mean, and I work with lawyers in my field of work, adjacently, and it's like whether there's black hats or white hats or whatever, you get lawyers onto something, and it's like they got a hammer and things are looking like nails. So when he describes what happened in the case, and you can imagine more about this, where the judge got swapped, the Brady rules, they were trying to get discovery on things, and the judge shut that down. And there was information about it, the consultation with FinCEN, and what came back from that. No, they're not a bank. They're not doing electronic transactions themselves. It's software that is out there running. Nevertheless, they're being made an example of, and alluding to everything we've been talking about. It breaks my heart in a lot of ways. Let me play something real quick. There's a glimmer of hope that I heard just recently here. If I can bring this to the stage, here we go. Hopefully you can hear this if I play it.
I'm not hearing it.
So anyway, hopefully you could hear that. But we were talking offline a little bit about Trump, and when he got elected as a populist figure, I felt really kind of good about the populist movement behind what got him elected. Um, and then he'd go after like Thomas Massey or something. And I'd be like, oh, brother, like, really? So I never know which way his wind is blowing, but I feel like it comes from establishment powers half the time at least.
Yeah.
What level of hope do you have about any of that, if you know?
Well, I could sit here all day and tell you things I don't like about Trump. It would probably be less time required for that than to tell you all the things I didn't like about Biden and I wouldn't like about Kamala. But I mean, you throw someone in the White House, I could probably spend a lot of time on why I don't like them. I think that the good thing about Trump in this particular situation, I don't think this is inherently a good quality, is he's sort of vengeful. And this was Biden's DOJ who started this attack on the Samurai devs. And so I could see this being an easy pardon if that clip, I'm not sure if the audio was working. I couldn't hear it, but I've seen it. So basically a reporter, for anyone listening, if you weren't able to hear it, a reporter asked him the question about potentially pardoning Keone and Bill, the Samurai devs. And he said he'd heard about it. He asked, is this something I should look into? Do you think they should be pardoned? Sounds like maybe they should be pardoned. Mm-hmm. And so what I am hopeful is that it would be a very easy win for him to, a bone to throw to the Bitcoin crypto community. The question is, I'm probably on net hopeful because of that. The cynicism I tend to have towards politicians is I still wonder if there is a broader, they were very evidently not a licensed money transmitter. FinCEN agreed. They never took custody of funds. That's what you have to do to be a licensed money transmitter. Mm-hmm. It was only a conspiracy charge. They dropped the conspiracy to commit money laundering because there was no party with which they were committing money laundering. Right. Is the reason that these guys are going to prison, is it simply because the Biden administration DOJ is evil and corrupt, or is there a more concerted effort to clamp down on privacy tools? And what exactly gives me pause is Wisconsin and Michigan trying to ban VPNs and all of this new support for age verification on social media. Hey, let's do it the way Australia is doing it. They're also, there are U.S. politicians who are cheering this stuff on the right, even, not just the left. And so if this is an isolated incident because of a corrupt DOJ under the Biden administration, I'm extremely hopeful. If it's really a broader attack on privacy, I'm a bit more skeptical as to what that might mean for them. Now, I think if we make enough noise, a pardon does not. They still probably manage to scare people out of building new privacy tools. Maybe they've accomplished their mission, and he can still pardon them. Throw a bone to the Bitcoin crowd. Throw a bone to the Bitcoin, the people building in the Bitcoin space. But I can't make heads or tails when it comes to politicians. I just have no idea what the conversations are behind closed doors, what they're really thinking, how far out are they just thinking to the midterms, in which case throwing a bone to us would be a great thing to do, or are they, thinking out into the future much further about how do we implement the sort of control at the state level that we want to see? What do you think?
I can't imagine to understand the political sausage that's made up in the puzzle palace. And it's easy to get conspiratorial about it because I feel like the broader big motivations are more than just the current president or the current politicians. It's like generations of old power structures. Ultimately, you could say it's like, it's the banks, it's like who funds this stuff? Who lends our nation its own money at interest? It's like, who is in charge? So it's easy to get cynical, I guess, because you'd say, oh, you get a new populist president. They don't want to get either character assassinated or assassinated. And yet they can rattle the cage, but what are the guardrails? And do they know what those are? And then Trump will be so inconsistent that it's almost like, okay, what is acceptable for the edge of politics to exist at might stretch or expand here and there, but ultimately, a huge example was made of these. It casts a huge amount of fear over a sense of what's allowed in terms of privacy and freedom. And when it comes to money, for sure, Trump could pardon these guys, and then I would still be concerned that, there's longer term games at hand that are things about central bank digital currency, universal basic income, digital ID. It's just kind of potential op after op after op for reasons. And that the samurai case is important, yes. But I think they're saying, okay, what if we give them that? Or, okay, we can't prevent people from running certain software or VPNs anyway. We can pass the laws. We can make normal behavior criminal. We can make all the good normal people out there criminalized. So just, see if you ever get caught. The long game, it may be sort of like, and at times, I don't know if you agree with this. What I will have concerns about, say in Bitcoin, is maybe sort of the walled gardens growing, the capture cage kind of growing, where it's like, oh yeah, you Bitcoin, but it gets a little harder and harder to do it self-sovereign, self-custody route. But it's very easy just to go through your broker, go through your ETF, go through exchanges or derivatives or the treasury companies. And so, like, yeah, Trump is pro crypto so long as it's a walled garden to the companies involved, or we're working on the walled garden with Bitcoin. So, and that gets back to just so long as Bitcoin remains decentralized and secure, I say run a node, take self-custody. We've got to help protect this thing too. So basically, long story short, when it comes to politics and the deep state, I feel easily cynical, but I try not to get caught up in it where it consumes my energy too much. Meanwhile, focus on craft, focus on what's good and family.
I can, yeah, you're spot on. So I was talking to a guy recently who he's been struggling with just like outright cynicism about everything, any power structure, any, even like local, political faith-based influences, like anything. He's just cynical. And I told him, I said, there are people in this world who I think have earned our cynicism. And I would say, if you're associated with the state, you've achieved that mission. You have my cynicism, and you have a major mountain to climb to prove to me that I shouldn't be cynical. I think that there's a place for healthy skepticism of just about everything, and it's the reason I re-explored my faith and I questioned, some of the, what are the incentives at play, for this or that? Why doesn't our healthcare system make any sense? Like how is that structured? And so you can ask questions. And I think there's a place for earned trust, right? Like I trust my wife to the moon and back. And I trust, my brother is my best friend. I trust my family. I trust the local farmer where I get my, my grass-fed beef from. And so it's really making those determinations in a thoughtful way. I don't think cynicism is a healthy disposition in any and all cases. I think it's a very useful, it's a useful filter by which you can, put people who have generally earned their way there. Mm-hmm. And I think beyond that, it shouldn't affect your daily life most of the, by and large. I think in your daily life, you should be focused on the things that you can control. And I love what you hit on, Fritz. It's take self-custody, run a node. If you feel so inclined, do some of the things that I'm talking, homeschool your kids, pull them out of the government indoctrination camps, buy grass-fed, from a local farmer. I canceled my health insurance and opted for Crowd Health. There are a lot of little ways that are what a lot of people need to, I think a lot of people need to wake up to the fact that there are alternatives. There are ways to opt out. And the other thing you have to do is you have to be ready to pay a bit of an inconvenience price
Right.
for some of those things. I can't just walk up to my local grocery store and get the quality of beef that I want. I have to, order through, like by email to this guy, go pick up at a specific time. I have to do the same thing to get my raw cow milk. I've got to go drive to get my raw goat milk from another place. If I want to do all these things, it's going to cost me a little bit of time. It's more expensive, in dollar terms. But you compound the net benefit of that over 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. And you just come out so far ahead that all of those little inconveniences, those don't compound. They just add up, add up bit by bit. But the benefit of making those decisions, it's, who was it who said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world.
I can't remember who said that.
Yeah. So
sit back and collect.
Exactly. So I think you're onto it. You can't allow your cynicism or even your skepticism, of which I have immense amounts of both, in different areas of my life. You can't let it rule your mind, I guess, is one way of thinking of it.
Yeah, I was pretty darn black-pilled before Bitcoin. When you talk about Bitcoin changing, I was feeling all these things. I just hadn't figured out or discovered Bitcoin myself yet. And so what Bitcoin did was say, oh, there is a path out. And then that registers with remembering that you have personal agency, you want to take responsibility. And that leads to, it's a little more effort and all that, but you're engaging with life. And that's how people used to, as normal, engage with life itself, incorporate your life into processes that are based and healthy and aren't just matters of constant convenience. So when we're bombarded with convenience, and certainly I take advantage of convenience in all over the place, but where you can allow your rubber to hit the road and take traction in your personal agency, it's just so important to lead an authentic life and slow down, evaluate your time preference, which I continually do. And what I see with Bitcoin's adoption rate is that, the number go up and I want to get to strategic Bitcoin reserve, but the adoption rate of Bitcoin is growing quickly, but in non-self-custodial ways. You had a chart where at one level, Bitcoin's growing in one direction, and the steep curve of adoption is sort of the number go up convenience path, but it's a different path of Bitcoin. When I think of, so it's like, I'm not overtly against nation states adoption of Bitcoin, or it's going to happen. Banks are going to get on it. Corporations are going to get on it. Nation states are going to get on it, and they're going to have their strategic Bitcoin reserves. When I think about what a strategic Bitcoin reserve is, it's like, okay, let's just say America or perhaps any country. How are they going to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve? We imagine them buying it. What does that mean? Where does the money come from? It's like they could say the most ethical path they could take is to just buy it. Well, that would be like stealing it from all of us, because that money, which they don't have, is monetary debasement, or they print it or whatever. So it's sort of like, okay, so they're diluting the currency to what? By a harder currency for who? A government. Or the alternative, like what we've seen largely, is that they basically don't sell and hold on to what they've already confiscated through criminal actions or prosecution. So no matter how I slice it, a strategic Bitcoin reserve looks to me like it's nice for a nation state to have and maybe realign to the rules there one way or another, but it also feels like a theft to me.
Yeah, there's no ethical mechanism by which they can accumulate Bitcoin. They have two options. They can either steal Bitcoin from people, and they call it confiscated Bitcoin. They can steal Bitcoin, or they can clamp in the chains of your economic slavery in the form of money printing to buy Bitcoin, or an extension of the theft that we talk about is they tax you and they use that money to buy Bitcoin. So there's no ethical path for governments to hold Bitcoin, in my view, because governments are by definition coercive in nature and unproductive. And if what I just said is true, then I think I don't know how you make a justification for the accumulation of Bitcoin. I think it's sort of like the way people justify a lot of government action. It's like, well, the end justifies the means, and the end is we're going to be able to pay down our national debt, or we're going to, I don't know. The thing for me is, as much as I would like to escape, the sovereign debt collapse Armageddon that we might face, I think we just need to. I think it just needs to blow up, honestly, because if we pay down our debt, all we're doing is we're kicking the can down the road in a whole new way. Because do you really think that the drunken sailors who are spending our money today and have accumulated $38 trillion in debt, most of it in the last decade, do you really think that once they pay that down and we have zero debt, do you think we're not going to be back up to $38 trillion 20 years from now, 10 years from now?
Right.
Of course not. Like all we've done is we've resolved that for a moment. And I'm not even convinced that they're going to use the Bitcoin to pay down the debt, because then that Bitcoin re-enters circulation and now it's ubiquitous, right? It's like now it is the global money of the world. If they're paying U.S. debt holders with Bitcoin, for example, let's say that's the way they want to do it, or they're selling it to accumulate dollars from the people. They're putting Bitcoin in a lot of people's hand who probably didn't hold Bitcoin before. And now they've just dug their own grave. The money printer no longer has the force that it used to.
If there was a nation state arms race, like when I think of Jason Lowery's Soft War or something like that, and the political strategery around all of this, it's like as soon as a government starts printing their own money to race towards Bitcoin, it's like fiat's dead, and it's turned a corner. Now, are they going to do that? I don't know. When I listen to,
do you think some of them are already doing it quietly?
Oh yeah. So like for example, like China, if you imagine, they can criminalize this or that or the other, or have all control about it, but just they look at what Burma's doing and they're like, I think they've got to be. And I think they want to be cool about it. And so you watch these weird price actions in Bitcoin right now where it's kind of like simmer and then there's like a pump and a simmer and a dump. And people are like, what's going on? And there's a lot of various reasons you can imagine. But I think behind the scenes, there are large forces at play that are being cool about it, but they're seeing where things are going and they don't want to be last or even second. So it becomes a competitive resource capture game. And I see that.
Yeah. And Daniel, I know Daniel talks a lot about that. And, and that's what, man, if Daniel's thesis is right, because I remember in Prague, we were standing there at our booth talking about this. And I was like, hey, I'm not a price prediction guy. I don't think Daniel's like a price prediction guy. He might be a little more, not price prediction. He might be a little bit more number go up than me, because I think he tends to fall, like the way he sort of framed us. He's like, I think Daniel lean more towards Saylor, and you, Michael, lean more toward Jeff Booth. And he's like, I love Jeff Booth. I love Saylor. I think we just kind of sit on different opposite sides of the fence here in terms of how we want things to play out, the role that we anticipate Bitcoin might have in the world. But he told me he thinks as soon as the big players wake up, I'm going to paraphrase. I could be butchering a little bit, but there are going to be big players who wake up to this game of competitive resource capture and recognize that Bitcoin changes the rule. It is the one thing that you can't just have confiscated from you. And the moment they realize the new game that's being played because of Bitcoin's dollar denominated price just goes hyperbolic, like, 5 tens of millions. Like it just gets really crazy really fast. And that it's not I don't know that I hope he's right, honestly, because I hope it's a few years from now, because I want to have time to onboard more friends and family, educate more people, keep feel like I've contributed to this in a more meaningful way than I have up to this point. But if 3 or 5 years from now, if Daniel turns out to be right, you and I think will be very happy men that that he was right,
Certainly.
and hopefully we'll have brought enough people into the orange fold by then to to hang our hat on the work we've done.
Yeah, it's like the incentives behind the game haven't entirely changed at all, but Bitcoin changes a fundamental rule in the theft aspect of it. It cannot be taken from you if you do it properly. So with that fundamental rule change, and nation states are like, oh, so we don't have to like ship gold around or trade paper notes and promises continually. We can do Bitcoin all of a sudden. Not as it's convenient, yes, and it's a fundamental control and ownership over the most hardest property and use as money as you can ever have. So Daniel invented the MicroSeed. Daniel and I and Robin Sayer have been working with MicroSeed for a while now. So it brings me to self-custody. You want to not just own paper Bitcoin. You want to take self-custody. I'm going to play something real quick from my sponsor. Daniel and Robin and I have this company, MicroSeed. As a Bitcoiner, you know that taking self-custody is critically important. But if you've ever had a seed phrase, you've probably had it written down on something kind of like this. You can hide it or secure it, but paper burns, paper fades, paper gets wet, paper rots, paper blows in the wind. Paper has things written on it that might look important. So get off paper and get yourself a MicroSeed at microseed.io. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever. So I'm not going to tell people how exactly to take self-custody or how to get that stuff stamped in a secure way on steel or titanium. If you have any questions about that, contact the Bitcoin Way. They can guide you through the best practices and processes on that. MicroSeed is one way. You can get all 12 words on one side of a washer. But I mean, I started out with, okay, I had it on paper. It was kind of like, oh, well, I got one of these. Now what? So I got a little plate and I scratched it with a hard metal pencil, and I just had it scrawled on there, and kind of janky, but it worked. But then it was like, okay, how do I move with this? Or if you found this, like, you might know what that is. So anyway, there are a lot of solutions out there. MicroSeed's one of them. MicroSeed heavily supports the Bitcoin Way, and the Bitcoin Way is all about self-custody and doing it safely and carefully. So,
hey, if I could just say something about, first of all, great ad. I was distracted. I loved your jacket in the ad. That looks like a jacket I need. No, what I want to say about the MicroSeed though is I think it's one of the most innovative tools in Bitcoin self-custody.
Oh, thank you.
There are a handful of really good wallets. It's not most of them. There are, a handful of good open source software, desktop wallets, and a handful of good node, hardware manufacturers. You're right. Like, there are a number of ways that you can stamp your seed phrase. And I would even say, if you're someone who wants to buy like a plate and stamp your seed phrase, I think that's great. It's bigger, easier to read. I think everyone should get the MicroSeed though. And and the reason is because I think there are a lot of use cases for it, even beyond your seed phrase. Just putting down other information that you simply cannot lose. I think that's a fantastic tool for that. But if you're moving with your seed phrase, if you're traveling, it is probably the only way, besides memorizing a seed phrase, which you're susceptible to a head injury. It's the only way you can probably move with and reliably slip through. TSA, border guards, like whoever, with your seed, because you could put on your keychain and no one would have any idea. No one would ever look twice. And so I think it's very useful for that. But then the second thing is, let's say you choose to stamp your seed phrase on a plate. You don't want that to be your one point. Like, if remember the California wildfires, was it earlier this year or last year?
Yep.
They weren't people weren't even allowed to get to their house. Like, they were bulldozing, cleaning up the rubble. If your seed plate's sitting in there, you didn't grab it in time before you had to get out. Even if it's still sitting there, good luck finding it. I mean, you're literally digging through a pile of rubble.
Yeah.
with the MicroSeed, it's on a 1-inch washer, and you can transport it anywhere. You can, send half of your seed phrase to one friend in another jurisdiction, half of it to another friend. Make sure they don't know each other. They can't, collaborate, or at least have a passphrase, on your self custody setup. But I think it just gives you a lot of versatility to make sure that you in self custody are not a single point of failure, in a way that it's maybe it's a good, like, basic one, but too many things can go wrong if that's your one, source of truth, so to speak, when it comes to backing up your seed phrase.
Yeah, you're spot on. And you can, I appreciate all that as well, by the way. And you can feel like, well, I've got it in the safe, my safe is secure. um, this is a wildfire that occurred in my backyard this past summer. And I have people I know who had a small house fire, or might face a random, depending on where you live. We live out in beautiful places. It can happen right downtown near LA. And you'd be like, oh, I can't hardly imagine that. Shit happens in life, folks. And you don't want your family inheritance, your tribe's treasury, in any kind of risk whatsoever. Stamping it in steel is critically important. With a MicroSeed, if you stamp your 12 words on one side of a washer, you turn it around, you got a blank washer, or cover it with another one, bolt it to the back corner of your safe, or under your fridge, behind the dryer, whatever. And it's just a nothing burger. So, like, somebody could break into your house, break into your safe, you could have a fire go through, whatever. Now, these are extreme situations here, but life happens when you're busy making other plans. There's your seed phrase. Somebody could open up your safe, take your gold, take your guns, whatever. They're not looking for that washer bolted as part of the frame of whatever. Now, when you're talking about traveling and you're trying to get through TSA or any border, any security type situation you might have, you might be traveling for a vacation, you want to bring a little Bitcoin with you. And I've had people say, I don't have all my Bitcoin on say a plate or something, or that I want to travel with me, or on a piece of paper. But what if, TSA just takes a look at it, or it's like it's on something larger, or it's metal at all, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're good to go. But they took a look at it, took a picture of it, whatever. And then you're thinking, is that Bitcoin safe? MicroSeed comes with a nylon washer, same size, 1-inch outer diameter. You can stamp on it. It's invisible. You can't see it. When you get to where you're going, you can take a black marker and just wipe on the surface, and the letters come right out. Temporary solution. Yeah, it's not going to survive a fire. But if you want to travel through security, you can stamp a seed phrase or whatever you want on a nylon washer. Not going to trigger any metal detectors. Does not look like anything. You could wear it as a button. You could wear it as a necklace. It could be a feature of your luggage. And it's a nothing burger. When we talked in Las Vegas, there were guys that worked for a security consulting type company, for a company that does analysis of chains. And they were most intrigued by the nylon washer. I've told this story before, but yeah, it's on metal. Oh, this is small. Yeah, our 1 to 3 millimeter detector can't really see that very well at all. That's hard to detect alone. But then they looked at the nylon washer and they were like, wow, yeah, we're not going to see this. These are guys that teach like what to look for to TSA, Border Patrol, U.S. Marshal Service. They teach agents on kind of like, if you're looking for legitimate criminals, say, kind of like what to be looking out for. And one of the things you can look out for is a big plate or a big stack of something, or 12 words of some kind. Could mean something. So if it's like a nylon grommet in your luggage and you go through anywhere, what is that? Or if it's dipped in plastic and is around your neck as a medallion, no. You can rest much more assured in that regard. So that's one of the offerings that we bring with this technology. So
yeah, very, very cool. Yeah, so many ways you can secure it that you just can't secure other things, and it's covert. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing is you can it's unassuming, and you can't do that with a plate. You can't do that with a hardware wallet. You can't do that with almost anything else. So
Yeah.
very cool tech. I think everyone should have, like, if I were to only buy one stamping solution, it would be the MicroSeed, because
Awesome.
it's just so much more versatile than anything else.
Awesome. We're coming up on nearly an hour and a half here. I really appreciate all your time. One quick thing, the Bitcoin Way recently onboarded Alejandra. I'm going to pop this up real quick. Now she's doing a lot of media and promotion for you. I met her at Vegas when we had the MicroSeed booth. Great gal. I just want to give a little shout out. She puts out fun, intriguing, interesting educational videos, and just has been promoting MicroSeed for a long time. Miss El Salvador of 2022, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, she's joined the Bitcoin Way. Your team is growing, and I love seeing where Bitcoin Way is going.
Yeah, she's been a great addition. She's able to make it to a lot of events that our team is scattered across the world, and obviously there's a huge lift with making it to any event. So we have to be sort of choosy about where we go and spend time and invest larger amounts of capital to put up a booth in that. But she's sort of nomadic. I mean, she works in El Salvador on her family farm. But she was in Japan for a month, a few months back. She was in El Salvador. I think she was in Costa Rica or Mexico maybe for an event recently. And so it gives us an opportunity for, a member of our team to engage with a lot of people who we don't get to see that often. And so she has a segment on Tuesdays, that on our YouTube channel now, where it's a combination of her talking about, topical things, Bitcoin sort of in its cultural significance, interviewing interesting people. She had, I think today there's one with Tone Vase coming out. She talked with Knut Svanholm recently, Ryan Matta, for anyone who likes the conspiracy rabbit holes, but awesome guy, shedding light on some evil corruption in the world.
Oh, totally.
And so this just gives us a new way of educating and hopefully reaching, like Tony, I think resonates with a lot of people. Tony doesn't resonate with everyone. And I think having another voice on the team who is, just as convicted for Bitcoin is Tony, like Alejandra, is a huge addition to the team.
She makes your message very accessible. She is just loving, warm, positive, excited. So it's a great addition. I think it's fun to watch. I'm going to bring people to your website, the Bitcoin Way. I will just say, no matter what level of Bitcoiner you think you are, you may think you're a great Bitcoiner, you know all the stuff, you're really smart about it. We have seen story after story of very, very smart Bitcoiners make a mistake, or they get rug pulled, or they get scammed. It happens, folks. So slow down, step by step, make sure you know what you're doing. And even if you just have a niggling bit of doubt, or you're not sure, or you think you might have made a mistake, or you want to just say, I think I know what I'm doing, but I want to make sure I'm going to do it the most correct way, contact the Bitcoin Way. You can go to thebitcoinway.com and start there. And that's one way to go about it. There's also, you're on X. You got the Bitcoin Way. You can find you on X and on YouTube.
Yeah, I think we're on pretty much all the big social channels now. Our presence is still growing on some of them. X, our YouTube channel, obviously our website. Those are the big places you can find us. But yeah, I'll say I was a client before I started working with the Bitcoin Way, and I wouldn't be here, jumping on live streams and hopping on podcasts and investing the time that I invest in if my conviction in what the Bitcoin Way does wasn't so strong. So if you are out there, you're listening to this and you are trusting a third party with a key, if you're not running a node, if you've had to KYC yourself, if there's a customer support agent who might know how much Bitcoin you have or when you send it, I would gently push you and say, maybe you're doing something wrong. I would say even a lot of people who show up to us and they say, hey, I think my self-custody setup is good, but I just want to run it by you. They're using, a crappy hardware wallet. They're not running a node. They're maybe not using some enhanced features that just require, a bit more training, a little more knowledge to use. Usually there's something that we would recommend against that, the average pleb is doing even if they have taken self-custody. So come talk with us. It's free for 30 minutes. And, it's our job to convince you that the approach we take is the approach. But I think most people, we make a very compelling case for why we do things the way we do. And so if you are unsure, or to your point, Fritz, have an inkling of doubt, it costs you nothing to go talk to people who literally sit down all day, every day, guiding people into proper self-custody. So thebitcoinway.com or the bitcoinway.com/contact. It'll take you straight to the page where you can schedule a time.
Awesome. So happy to have you. Really appreciative of everything the Bitcoin Way goes. Michael, is there anything that I didn't touch upon or that you wanted to say before we go?
No, just check out the Bitcoin Way. Follow us on X. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got 6 segments a week that go out, and then we're doing shorts and all sorts of content. So just go search the Bitcoin Way just about anywhere. I think you'll find us. And Fritz, this has been a blast, man. Always great to catch up with you, and really appreciate you having me on.
You too. Thanks so much for joining me, and we will catch you next time. Bye.